we are in a world where every company, whether it is a small and medium business or a large business or even a bank or whichever enterprise that they are in, they are looking at a way to go to market via a digital medium. Gone are the days when they had a single channel digital enterprise, digital way to reach the customers, but now we are looking at omni-channel digital experience, right? Everybody wants to win in today's world with differentiated digital experience. And with all the pandemic and the remote work and everything that has happened in the last few years with COVID, there is a huge explosion in remote work. And from that standpoint, every business wants to look at what is happening with their digital experience, with their customers, with their applications, because mostly all of these digital experience is driven by applications. So every business wants to see how their applications are performing, how their user experience is, how their customer experience is, and you cannot fix what you don't know, and you don't know if you can't see, right? So observability is the way organizations, IT, infrastructure, applications, cloud providers can look at how the end-to-end digital service is delivered to a customer. So from that standpoint, driving digital adoption has a direct link to adapting observability platforms and how you look at observability, and to be able to drive this kind of behavior. Consumers are now very sophisticated in the use of their applications, and they are absolutely intolerant to any kind of poor digital experience. Now we have high-speed internet. Now we have everybody is using 4G now to go into 5G. Brands will get destroyed because of poor digital experience, right? People do not associate. Earlier, people used to associate brands with what they own. Like I have a car, I have a fridge, I have a TV, and that's the brand that I go with. Today, people associate with the kind of applications that they use. I use Instagram, I use Facebook, I use Netflix versus I use Hotstar. These are digital application channels. So businesses, whether they're small, medium, whether they are large enterprises, whether they are telecom service providers, retail, manufacturing, and now we are seeing that in pharma also, healthcare and pharma also. People want to associate where they have an excellent digital experience, and you cannot have that digital experience unless you have observability strategy to drive your digital experience too. So that's what I'd say about the impact of observability in today's world. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of work that technology companies and technology leaders have done in the last 18 months or so, right? They've looked at, this whole cloud explosion. Everybody wanted to go to cloud. There's a huge public and private cloud adoption that's happening in India. India is one of the largest markets when it comes to cloud transformations and cloud migration projects. There's been a massive uplift in the, even while working from home, there's been a massive uplift around what kind of projects they have taken. But now that all those projects and all those cloud migrations have resulted in a sprawling IT experience, right? And it is complicated further by the massive adoption and proliferation of digital technologies. Like you cannot transform your legacy application to a digital application unless you're using new age technologies like microservices, cloud-based containers, APIs, etc. So you've got this sprawling IT estate where a lot of hybrid cloud instances exist from an infrastructure standpoint, but from an application and a digital service standpoint, you've been massively rewriting your old applications into microservices-based, cloud-based containers. So all the work that the technologists have done in the last 18 months are now really coming to fruit, but it's a tightrope that these leaders and these companies are walking, right? Even the smallest slip up in performance and experience can lead to almost 50% of their customers walking away. Because like I said, the brand is associated with the experience. Add to it the negative press and the publicity that outages create. You know the number of outages that has happened in the last 8 months or 1 year, where there's been a massive media coverage of big applications and business services and financial services being down or not able to operate, right? For whatever reason. And that damages the reputation of the brand, impacts valuation, and in a digital native world, that impacts what investments they are going to seek, etc. We did a research recently using a survey, and our research has found that almost 86% of technology companies in India are still looking at massive, this sprawl, and they're still relying on multiple disconnected, disparaged systems to look at observability, to look at the end-to-end experience, right? So one is you build the big highway, but you still need the cameras and the toll booths and the other associated systems for the highway to be able to operational and control the traffic and to have visibility into what's happening when an accident happens and a vehicle pile up. You still need to be able to go back and resolve those issues. I think we are in a process where we build the highway with all these massive projects, and now there is a big highway. But now I think think of observability as the control points and the visibility points in the highway, the toll booth in the highway, the security camera in the highway, the signals in the highway, the boards in the highway, which are your exits, etc. Right? Otherwise, people are not going to exit at the right place, and they're going to land up 50 kilometers in front of where they want to. So I feel like we are in that space. We're building that up, and I think as the highway is being built, leaders are now realizing, large companies are now realizing that this is not like a sequential process. You got to build the control points and the observability systems as you build the highway, because otherwise it becomes extremely unmanageable. Yeah, cloud migration is interesting, right? You're moving in from, and a lot of customers are doing this, and I've had many conversations with large enterprises, big banks, huge government companies around this whole cloud migration initiative, right? A lot of cloud migration is lift and shift, which is basically you got a working system in your on-premise data center, and you want to get the advantage of the cloud, so you basically lift and shift the applications, infrastructure, etc., into the cloud to get the leverage that you need. Most of the time, that migration is being used by an infrastructure as a service kind of a thing, right? Not necessarily SaaS, not necessarily platform as a service. Some people do platform as a service, but majority of this is infrastructure as a service when we start off. And when you do that lift and shift, imagine a world where you're lifting and shifting. You also have, because of this digital adoption and because of this digital transformation, you also have rewrites on your applications, right? You're also constantly renewing the experience that your customers want. You're also constantly rewriting your application code. Sometimes it is in-house, sometimes it is given to a third party. So you got like two massive moving parts. One is the infrastructure lift and shift to the cloud. The second is the churn that keeps on doing in your release cycles. Some people, I've had banks which release once in 2 weeks. Some of them release once in 3 months. Some of them release once in 6 months. But irrespective of your release cycle, you have continuous changes there. Think of a cloud migration project where you've got these two moving parts, and you've got to be able to it's not like you switch off the lights and do cloud migration for 6 months and come back and start with the customers, right? You're serving customers. You're running mission critical transactions. Your customers are expecting the same quality. There is no excuse available to say, oh, I'm doing cloud migration, so my experience with your customer is no longer going to be Netflix-like, right? Customers are going to run away from those platforms. So the real impact of that is an ability to look at pre-cloud migration and post-migration. How have we improved the experience? Have we degraded the experience? Have we improved it? If yes, what metrics have we used, right? It's an easier said, but it's difficult to do because you've got different set of systems running on your on-prem, different set of systems running in cloud. And you need to be able to have a observability platform that enables you to do both on-premise and cloud together, right? That's not easily achieved. That's one. The second piece is a lot of these projects require ROI very quickly. Industries and companies and organizations are spending millions of dollars to execute these projects with the cloud providers, with the system integration partners, with their existing teams, etc. So how do you, from a business impact and a business benefit standpoint, most of the boardrooms have this conversation today. The CXOs are totally ingrained in a conversation where they have to explain the ROI and they have to explain what difference materially have you made. Some of it as business metrics, but some of it is experience metrics, right? Some of it is about how your business has grown from A to B and what's the delta. The second is how your customer experiences change, how your response times have changed, how more users are coming to your platform, and how you've moved from a very costly brick and mortar service in a point of sale to online platform, so that now your cost of sale and cost of serving your customers have reduced massively. How do you explain that? You need to have metrics. You need to have the ability to drive these conversations in boardroom with data. Where do you get the metrics? By observing what happened pre-cloud and what is happening post-cloud migration, and then having an observability strategy to be able to, with the business context, to be able to answer those questions. One is observability strategy, to be able to observe whether the customer experience is impacted, but also how we can collect now that you're collecting all the metrics and all the data with all your experience and customers, can I now put it into a business context to say, earlier we had customers buying X rupees through our X channels, and now we have X plus delta through our online channel, and that's the business benefit we have achieved. Those conversations are becoming very important for technologists now, because earlier it used to be a CFO business conversation. Now it's a technology conversation. Great question. So the new world that we are seeing is where software is the business, right? Because the business that I have is now in my app, and app has become the business. So in order to quickly iterate on the app, a lot of cloud native platforms have become very relevant, and nothing more than the microservices based approach, Kubernetes based approach, cloud native containers, APIs, etc. become very common, right? And when you look at that, enormous workloads in the cloud native journey, what is going to be difficult for customers is that how do you dedicate your headspace to high value, innovative, strategic priorities, right? And how can I look at my investment and my move into cloud native application landscape, and how can I get more business value out of what I'm doing? Now let me explain that a little bit. Like business dev teams and op teams today have to work in a closed loop operating model. And if they don't work together, two big problems exist. One, business initiatives that move quickly cannot get into the app on time, and apps fall behind. So business is talking X, apps are X minus delta. The second and the most important piece with this whole cloud native approach is that this is all underpinned by the assumption that you're going to provide and produce winning experiences for your customers. Now, executives sitting in a conference room with an idea of an experience are almost always wrong about what will work for end users. The way the modern world works is that digital natives have pioneered this concept, and using cloud native technologies, and these are digital native companies, have pioneered the concept of saying, you do your research, create a hypothesis as to what will work for your users and your customers, code it in your applications using cloud native technologies, get that app very quickly in front of your users with real-time measurement and telemetry, and then you use that real-time measurement and telemetry to inform yourself as to what's working and what's not. And based on this real-time data, you reform your hypothesis, make the adjustment required, re-implement in your code, and get back in front of your users again. And just really reiterate and iterate this process again and again. I mean, think of this as more shots on the goal, right? On the goalpost, right? The more shots on the goal you're able to make in this iterative process and the velocity of this iteration, the more chances you have to reach that winning experience. Now, think of organizations which are using legacy siloed approach to be able to do that. The new age organizations who approach cloud native technologies are able to do that because they have teams which are able to do this iteration and to be able to redo this very quickly. But think of government organizations, large big banks, big conglomerates who've been there for 50, 100, 200 years to be able to do this iterative process quickly and to be able to come in front of customers with new experiences that you want. They struggle with that because of their existing baggage, because of their existing business. Most of them look at creating digital teams. As you know, CDOs and CDIOs are very common in our industry today, right? So they look at digital teams. And what do these digital teams do? These digital teams create organization within an organization which are focused on cloud native technologies. They create newer version of applications, newer version of go-to-market services based on cloud native technologies, and they are able to reiterate this. And then you kind of have these two worlds exist within the organization. One which is still dependent upon, we call it run the business world. And in every bank and every organization, you've got run the bank, run the manufacturing, run the business group, and then you've got the grow the business group. The grow the business group is usually where you invest, where you use cloud native technologies to be able to go after new channels and provide new winning digital experiences, and they adopt these cloud native technologies to be able to go and win more business. Talk about a cloud platform and a SaaS platform. Now, SaaS is another interesting area that we need to talk about, right? Like I said, most of these transformations happened originally when we started off cloud migrations many years ago as infrastructure as a service, and then it moved into platform as a service because a lot of cloud providers provided platform-based services within as part of the SaaS, as part of their cloud offering. From a consumption model, a lot of the technologies have now moved to SaaS, and SaaS is interesting because the real benefit of SaaS is, of course, SaaS eliminates the need of you having to invest in running and operating the platform, you having to put people. It kind of delivers what the service that you require, and you can then focus on your business and not really worry about technologies and skills that you need to build in, right? Otherwise, on-prem platforms used to have people with different skills siloed across the organization because you needed to maintain those platforms. No longer you need to maintain those platforms, right? And therein lies the observability paradigm. A lot of observability systems have always been on-premise for many, many years, right? And there are a lot of impediments about moving to cloud, right? Now, as we see what is happening in the country, the observability systems have now moved to SaaS because of the advantages that I said. But what is also important is to be able to drive that data residency and data security with the SaaS operating model. One of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have, especially within India and especially within regulated organizations like banks, like governments, like retail, etc., is about data privacy guidelines and data privacy requirements that at some point we will have them published, and at some point we will have a guideline that comes out of the cabinet that gives the more things to meet from a data privacy standpoint. So one of the things that we have done as AppDynamics and Cisco recently, not very recently, a year and a half, 2 years ago, was to invest in a SaaS platform in India so that the data stays in India. And I feel like as we grow SaaS consumption across the landscape, having a local SaaS instance, having the data not leave the country is important. We live in a very geopolitically difficult world, right? And you've seen how things get changed overnight with geopolitical tensions. And I think as businesses mature and as businesses put more eggs in the basket of cloud native technologies and SaaS platforms, they are going to look at partnering with SaaS providers who've got data sovereignty and data residency in respective countries, right? And we've seen that happening with all the industries that we operate with. From an observability standpoint, because there is data involved and because there is metrics involved, it is always a question to see what metrics am I sending out, what data am I sending out, and where is it reside. So the question of what data am I sending out can only be controlled so much in a real-time system where you're observing millions and millions of transactions across millions of users, right? What you can definitely do is, even if I send some data out, if that data resides in the country and if that data is in my control and it doesn't leave the country, you can at least breathe easy about the fact that I'm not going to break any law in the future. So I think I've seen a lot of people, a lot of customers, a lot of boardroom conversations around where we are investing, what kind of partners we are having in these SaaS platforms, and what's my data doing. You're aware of a lot of investigations and exposures that have happened in the last 18 to 24 months about where the data is residing, and sometimes it's best to avoid all that conversation by solving that problem right at the root. That said, the expansion of just to add to the second part of your question around digital natives and startups, a lot of the digital natives and startups started with the idea of, I don't care where the data is going because I want to go to, they're in the grow the business mode, right? They're all about how can I get to 10 million first? How can I get to 100 million first? How can I capture more users? But as they become mature and as they become bigger, these questions become more relevant. And I've seen most of the digital natives who are got a significant user base now looking at what are the SaaS platforms that we are using. Are we, tomorrow if there's a change in law about data privacy and data sharing, are we compliant? How can we compliant? How can we move these to platforms that are more suitable to, especially retail, e-commerce, etc., are more keen to come to invest in platforms that have invested in local SaaS platforms.